Greetings, people of Earth. Welcome back. My name is Jax, and today we are talking about gay stereotypes and why they really screw you up. They really mess you up. They really do. I think we all have an idea of the stereotypical gay man. When I say that, you have this image in your head, and it is probably some very thin, catty, feminine acting gay man who is very sort of bitchy and not exactly, um, cordial or that kind of thing. Like the we all have that stereotype, okay? We all know what I'm talking about. Um, and sure, there are people that are, fit that stereotype really, really well. That exists. And I think we can all agree that, stereotypes kind of usually have their root in some kind of media or some kind of depiction where you're like, oh, yeah, that's where that stereotype comes from. The real problem with these stereotypes is, first of all, if they represent anybody, they represent like an incredibly small percentage of people. So when you stereotype anyone based on their race, religion, orientation, age, whatever, it is based on such a small fraction of the actual people that are in that category, in that group. It's really prejudicial, obviously, but it's also really excludative, or I guess exclusive is the word. But what I mean by that is one of the reasons and one of the problems I had with coming to terms with like being gay, being bisexual, being queer, was that I thought that I had to fit that stereotype in order to be gay. So for a really long time, until I was probably 20 years old, I was like, oh, I can't be gay because I don't like Drag Race. I don't like the idea of going to a pride parade. I don't dress like that. I don't fit into these specific stereotypes. I don't like iced coffee. I thought that I had to fit that in order to be that thing. In order to be gay, I thought that I had to be involved with that whole stereotype. And so it was really damaging. And obviously, it prevented me from being able to come to terms with who I was. It prevented me from coming out of the closet. It probably prevented me from having meaningful relationships and connections with other people. And so this is kind of one of the problems that we all have with the idea of stereotyping, especially in the gay community. Another big problem is the stereotyping of the different groups in the gay community. Okay, and so if you don't know, there are several groups, and they're basically based on people's body types, which is really problematic if you think about it. But essentially, they're like the twinks, which are the hairless, very thin, young gay men. There are the bears, which are the bigger, burlier, hairier gay men. And there are all kinds of subcategories, like there's otters, there's jocks, there's twunks, there's all kinds of things. But all of these people tend to be incredibly stereotyped, and everyone has like an idea of what these people are, when in reality, every time you meet somebody who fits one of these categories, they're going to be completely different. They're going to have their own personality, their own history, their own way of being. Shocking, I know. But in all honesty, these stereotypes do not help. I've heard people talk about stereotypes and say that the reason that humans stereotype is like a way of easily categorizing if this person is good, or, if this is a potential danger, or what I'm doing here. And so the point of a stereotype, supposedly, like evolutionarily, it's supposed to allow us to quickly judge a situation and say, oh, this is okay, or oh, this is not good. The problem with this is that when you start to stereotype people in this way, in this specific kind of personality trait way, you're going to be wrong. It's not effective, and it really doesn't help you in any meaningful way. In fact, it actually hurts you. Like if you just have this perception that all gay men who are bears are, really aggressive and, blah, 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 blah. You're preventing yourself from hanging out with really cool people who might be incredibly interesting and fun to hang out with. And maybe you meet, I don't know, your best friend, the love of your life. You could meet any one of these people. And so it's one of these problems that we have in the gay community, is this stereotyping, is this prejudice. Another huge one in the gay community is age. We stereotype people for their age so hard. If you are an older gay man, if you are in your 80s or your 60s or your 50s or 40s or 30s, you are considered an older gay man, which is crazy, first of all, but it's also incredibly damaging because we all age. Getting old is a privilege. It means you didn't die last year. And the idea that we are going to somehow stigmatize that and get mad at people and get prejudicial and say, ew, I don't want to talk to him, he's old. Like, excuse me, you're going to get old. It's a natural thing. If anything, it's a flex. It's like, dang, I survived another year. And so the idea that we make fun or we're derogatory or we're just plain rude to people who are old is an incredibly prejudicial thing, and it's basically just stereotyping. And so these are the kinds of things that the gay community really has to get over, because the idea that, oh, I'm just going to stereotype somebody for their looks or the way they act or, very surface level things, you're missing out. And I really think that you're doing yourself a disservice if you continue to stereotype specific groups. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I work on this as best I can, but it is a process, and you really just have to check your stereotypes and say, why do I have this assumption that this person is going to act this way? Maybe it's from a past experience that didn't go so well. Maybe it's from a TV show or a movie, or the way you grew up, or the way your parents or your friends or your family thought about something. But these stereotypes, they exist in every category, but in the gay community, they are really pernicious. They are really detrimental to how you interact, how you carry yourself, who you get to interact with. And so these are like big issues. And obviously, like, I can't cover everything in a YouTube video like this, but I think the biggest piece of advice I can give you is that if you're a new gay, or if you're someone who's coming into this without like a lot of knowledge of this whole thing, realize that almost everybody is going to stereotype you and put you into some category somehow, some way. Understand that it doesn't have to define you. You do not have to let someone's stereotype of you shape who you are. You don't have to play into it. I know some guys who do play into their stereotype. Like, I know some guys who are like really big, like himbo, like beefy guys, and they play dumb because that's the stereotype of a himbo, is that they play dumb, which is really unfortunate because these guys are so interesting to talk to about like deep issues and philosophical things. But when you hang out with them, they're like, oh yeah, I gotta go to the gym. And they're just like, they play into that stereotype. So it's really unfortunate that sometimes people do that. I mean, if it works for you, cool. I'm not gonna say anything, but yeah, realizing that everyone is going to attempt to stereotype you, and that you just have to live authentically and live the way you want to be, and you will probably break a lot of those stereotypes constantly. I think like a good sign that you're doing something well is someone will say to you like, oh wow, I would have never guessed that you would have done that. Like people often say to me, oh, I would have never guessed that you play piano, or that you speak Norwegian, or like whatever. And I always take that as a real compliment, because it means that I broke their stereotypical view of me. I broke the expectation that they had for me, or that they had set. And so, yeah, never be afraid to like be authentically who you are and break through a stereotype, because like I said, you are going to be dealing with these stereotypes your entire life. And my best advice is just find people who aren't going to stereotype you, and aren't going to do that, because they're out there. We exist. People who just want to connect with interesting people, regardless of what they look like, how old they are, anything. They exist and they are worth it. So that's my 2 cents on the whole world of gay stereotypes. It's a problematic and it's a difficult thing, but just live your life, be who you are, treat people with compassion, and you will find people who are worth hanging out with. So that's all I gotta say. I really hope that you found something useful in this video. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you're having an amazing day, week, month, year, whatever you're having. I hope it's amazing. And as always, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.